I never thought it would win the debut national award and all that. We just thought let's just try and make something interesting because nobody was funding the film. So I thought let me prove them wrong that I could make a movie. And film school, when I saw those films, I thought, God, you can make a film without any money, and all you need is a good script and a bunch of equally mad actors who are willing to give you time.
Hi, this is Melanie of Pardesi Reviews. I was honored to be able to interview director Mohan Krishna Indraganti. We had such a long discussion that I'm going to break up the interview into 4 parts. This first part, we discuss his national award-winning film, Grahanam. Part 2 will be a discussion of Nani's debut film, Ashtachama. Then we'll talk about Samahanam. And then finally, in part 4, we'll talk about the upcoming film V, which is going to be released on September 5th on Amazon Prime. So here we go with part 1 of my fabulous interview with Mohan. Hi, this is Melanie of Pardesi Reviews, and I'm here with a special interview. Director Mohan Krishna Indraganti, the director of films like Grahanam, the award-winning film, Ashtachama, Nani's very first film, Gentleman, Samahanam, and the upcoming V, which is coming to Amazon Prime on September 5th. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today for this discussion. So did you always want to be a filmmaker? I've read that you come from a family of writers, and you studied English. You have an advanced degree, a master's degree in English. So did you always want to be a filmmaker, or did you dream of being a writer and then kind of switch course?
I think I was always interested in cinema. I think from my childhood, I didn't know that till my friends reminded me recently that when I was in my 10th grade, I used to really bug them with, telling stories. Whatever films I watched, I used to come back and narrate to them frame by frame. So they now tell me that we always thought you would be a filmmaker, but 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 I think it's around my graduation that I thought I should become actually a filmmaker. I didn't. I was in love with the cinema. I was in love with the medium, but I never thought I didn't even know what it meant to be a director of a film. I thought I didn't know what they would do, what they did, and all that. So it's after my graduation, I think, that I decided that I think I should try my hand at filmmaking, because then I thought, looks like I'm actually interested in this. Looks like I may have something to offer here. And doing my graduation, undergrad in literature, and my post graduation in literature also helped me, because there's this close connect between literature and cinema is something that I always found fascinating. And it's actually funny that it's the importance of being earnest, which I adapted as Ashtachama. I read that in my undergrad during a very casual break from my classes, when my teacher said, "Why don't you go to the library and do some reading?" I just picked it up randomly and read it. And I remember thinking, "Hey, this will make a great movie in Telugu if anybody could adapt it." And much later, I did it, quite surprisingly. So yeah, it was, I think, probably around my graduation, when I was finishing my graduation and undergrad, I mean, and I was registering for my postgrad in literature at the University of Hyderabad, that I thought, maybe after this I should get into filmmaking. But I didn't want to work as an assistant director to anybody, because I thought that would take too long. So once I finished my master's in MPhil in English literature, I went to Canada. I went to Toronto. I did my master's there in film from York University. I did my MFA in screenwriting there, and then I came back in 2001, and as usual went around all the studios, trying to find a backer. And then in 2004, I didn't find anybody who would produce Grahanam. So then a couple of friends came forward and gave me like 6 lakh rupees. I don't know how much that would be in dollars, but it's like it's virtually pittance. So I made my first film with that budget.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so different from your other films. I would call it parallel cinema. I absolutely loved it. And
thank you so much.
So, and I read that you got Barani to who I am so familiar seeing him as a character, more of a comedic actor in many Telugu
Yeah,
films. And for me, it was a delight to see him in a straight drama kind of role.
yeah.
But I read that he agreed to do the film without compensation.
Actually, none of the actors took any salary for that. They just did it for free. We gave some honorariums to actually Mr. Bharani and Jayalalitha, who did the female lead, and most of the other senior actors did not take. We gave honorariums to upcoming actors who did these big parts, 1,000, 2,000 rupees, 3,000 rupees, and all the technicians more or less work for free. And so it was crazy. And I was also at the time influenced by Dogma 95. I don't know if you've heard of this
Mm-mm.
movement in Danish filmmaking movement, which prepared the 10 commandments of filmmaking, where they said
Okay.
there shouldn't be any makeup, no costume design,
Wow.
no no lighting, no sound editing, nothing. It's a ten rule commandments that they prepared. This was pioneered by Thomas Winterberg, who made a film called Festen, Danish film called Festen. I think you should check it out. It's called The Celebration. It's called
Okay.
Celebration in English. It's called Festen, and of course you must have heard of Lars von Trier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who made all
Yes.
these crazy
Yeah.
films. These
Yeah.
guys have started this movement in I think in Denmark in the
Mm-hmm.
90s. I think it's in 95. I think that's why it's called Dogma 95. So when we in film school, when I saw those films, I thought, God, you can make a film without any money, and all you need is a good script and a bunch of equally mad actors who are willing to give you time
Yeah.
and their efforts. So that's how it started. So and it's you could see a lot of influence of Satyajit Ray and all these parallel filmmakers, who I
Right.
admired. So it was quite an adventure. I never thought it would win the debut national award and all that. We just thought let's just try and make something interesting because nobody was funding the film. So I thought let me prove them wrong that I could make a movie. That was the sole intention at the time. But yeah, turned out to be much more than what I thought.
Can you tell me about the choice you made to make the film in black and white, except for one particular, I don't know if I want to call it a dream sequence or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
a memory sequence is the only part that's in color.
It was actually quite an accidental choice. We were filming on digital. Actually, now we shot this film on digital and later transferred it to film because we didn't have the money, obviously. So we were shooting on a reasonably, not reasonably, we were shooting on actually a very low end camera. It's called Panasonic DVX100A, which is basically a news gathering camera. You know,
Okay.
and we were filming in color. And suddenly one day when we, I was not happy with the authenticity of what I thought this digital is making it look artificial. Although
Yeah.
we were shooting in a house with we didn't do any art direction for that film actually. Much of that furniture was real. I mean, the house was like 120 years old or something.
Yeah.
Where we were filming, and the furniture was actually that old, but the color was making it look rich, making it look
Mm.
artificial. So I had a small monitor and I just turned it to monochrome.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, this looks right. Let's make this in black and white. And then we shot the rest of the film looking at a black and white monitor. And I told my cinematographer, Vinda, who we both debuted together, I said, let's do this. And then Vinda said, oh, you should have told me this. I was lighting for something else. But then we managed in the post somehow to grade it to black and white, high contrast. Slightly we sort of toyed with the contrast and made it look. Once I shifted to black and white, it started really looking much more authentic. The period started coming across,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and we thought, this is looking more authentic. And then when I was actually editing the film, and I thought the story is rather bleak. He's like
Yeah.
recounting a flashback which is full of pain, and then how would it be if I shift to color when he's thinking of the fondest memories of her with her. Then
Yeah.
I thought I would just insert that small portion in color so that people also will have this. I remember when I screened it, there was a buzz in the theater when it suddenly
Yeah.
changed to color. People knew, there was an immediate connect with the memory. Except that, so that was a conscious choice. The color was a conscious choice, but the black and white was a complete accident. But it worked out. Yeah, yeah, it worked out
It
thankfully.
it worked out very well because, like you say, it set, I don't know, it set a mood, it set a period, I don't know. And Jaya Lalita's performance. Oh my gosh. Like, I mean, everyone was very good,
Funny thing
but
was,
I was blown away. I was.
Jayalalitha is actually, I don't know if you've seen her other films. She's known to be playing these sexy seductress, sexy, all these really B movie
Okay,
sexy
I did.
seductress.
I've only seen her
I,
like as the Speaker of the House
yeah,
in Bharatanatyam.
yeah. And then what's weird is that's the most interesting part about the film, that also speaks about the the mindset with which people watch the film.
Mm.
People thought, oh, a lot of people came to me and told me, because you cast Jayalalitha, we thought there was some relationship between her and the boy, which was the weirdest
Oh.
part for me, because it has nothing to do with her. It's nothing to do with the role she played earlier in other films. So the way a lot of men looked at a certain type of portrayal of women in films and what assumptions they made about that woman's real character kind of seeped into the way they judged Grahanam and Jayalalitha's character in the film.
Mm.
They thought Jayalalitha, because it's Jayalalitha who played this role, oh, Mohan must have cast her because there must have been some illicit relationship between the boy and her, which is the strangest thing for me. But yeah, I mean, she was a surprise casting, and like you were saying, a lot of people are quite shocked by how well she could actually perform. I mean, in spite of all the bad, stupid films she did. I mean, some of the films you can't even believe you see. I mean, it's really,
Wow.
really bad, B grade, highly objectified, sexualized imagery of Jayalalitha has nothing to do with, what we did in Grahanam.
So what about this short story compelled you that you wanted to make this your first film? I mean, I just thought it was such an amazing, compelling story, but it's, to be honest with you, it's something that's very different than most
Mm.
Telugu films that I have seen.
Yeah,
Not that I
yeah.
have seen much parallel cinema of Telugu films, but
There's not much to say also for you. There's very little of parallel cinema. When people keep asking me what kind of films do you make, is it mainstream or offbeat, I say I make upstream films because it's so difficult to get funding for my movies. But the thing is, the reason I was really excited about it was partly because of my education, partly because of my exposure to media studies and film studies and history of cinema and history, and my exposure to feminist studies and all that. What fascinated me was the way women's bodies were different tools you were used to shape and control female sexuality.
mm,
In different settings, it's different. I think sometimes it's superstition, sometimes it's fashion, sometimes it's
yeah.
and there's this unseen monitoring of female sexual behavior that took different forms in different cultures. And in this, it was the monitoring that the monitoring of the sexual behavior of women in a certain time, at a certain time in a particular society, and how it becomes so important for people to know what her sexual behavior is, even in her private space. There's a scene where
Mm,
she removes her that thread, sacred thread, and
yes,
puts it,
yes.
and then she goes, and then immediately the mother-in-law says, why don't you should put it back. I remember a lot of women said, no, that's actually inauthentic. you know Nobody does it in that. I said, how do you know that nobody ever did it? I'm sure a lot of women must have removed it during it, but it's just the assumption that so there is that monitoring is what I was interested in. And
Mm,
the the inexplicable desire for men to know, you know about a
mm,
woman's private life, and the assumptions they have, and then how a mere coincidence can ruin somebody's life. you know
yeah,
Just the doctor's medicine coincides with the shaman's medicine, and then the timing just matched, that's all. But
right.
it's also inspired by the writer, of course, is not alive anymore. But when I took the permission from the daughter of the writer, she told me that the story was inspired by a true life incident. It actually
Wow.
happened, yeah. And what's even more bizarre is when I won the national award, and during the after party, when I was meeting some of the jury members, and one of the jury members is from another state called Maharashtra. Mumbai
Mm-hmm,
is.
mm-hmm.
He
Yeah.
told me that in Maharashtra, similar practices existed in the 19th century, and he had personally seen some of his relatives being affected by this superstition. So that was a shocker for me.
Wow.
But that's what really fascinated me as to why, what is this? What is this? How did you come to the conclusion? Actually, in the original case that inspired the writer, it's not even blood from the thigh; it's menstrual blood.
Mm.
You have to make a paste from the menstrual blood and then put it in the eye of the victim, whatever it is, that's, and because the writer thought it's too harsh, he changed it to blood from the thigh, which would suggest what actually was intended.
Right. Right.
So it was a very painful film to shoot. Actually, for my first film, as you rightly said, it's very difficult because I had to handle an actress who was very senior to me, and I had to ask her to do these things, like to explain to her what this meant, and she was extremely understanding, and she really put everything into it, believed in it.
I mean,
And
the scene where Barney just loses his trust of her
yeah,
and then
yeah,
strikes her. Wow. I mean, that's a scene that I am never going to forget. It's just
great, yeah,
such an
yeah.
impactful scene.
Even while they were performing, it was bizarre because I remember when Bharani slapped her, she really slapped him back hard. Actually, she did it, and Bharani took it, and he said, "Good." You could see, if you see the film, you could see his eyes tear up because of the impact, you
Wow.
know. And he didn't cut. He just took it and went with it, and then later told me, he was joking with Jayalalitha, "You must be having a grudge." A long-standing grudge. But she was very apologetic. But he said, no, that is the right thing to do. I mean, it just worked. It wouldn't have been so impactful if you didn't do it. So they were so involved in it, and it took a while for them to come out of the scene also after doing it. So that was taxing
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, it
sure.
was,
I'm
yeah,
sure because they just went to very dark places in that
yeah, yeah.
scene, and it just I can imagine. Yeah, and I kind of, once I got the way through, I kind of got the reveal that who the doctor was going to end up being. I just love I love the film so much, and so very deserving of the National Debut Directorial Award. Come back and see part 2 of my interview with director Mohan Krishna Indraganti, where we discuss his film Ashtachama, which was Nani's debut film.
I went and told Nani, I have news for you. He said, what? And Nani by the time was so much in love with this role, Srinis, that he was literally heartbroken when I told him we have to play the lead. He said, no, I don't want to. He was like, sir, I like this a lot. I don't want this. I said, look. And afterwards, if anybody is looking for a new lead actor, it will be you.